Hello, everyone. I'm presenting research on my public diplomacy topic about the custodian of the Two Holy Mosques Scholarship Program, or CTHM, offered and coordinated by the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia. This is an outbound scholarship program where Saudi Arabian students can receive training and degrees overseas, fully funded by the Kingdom's government and corporate partners. Funding includes covering tuition, living stipend, and transportation costs. Historically, the CTHM scholarship program has evolved from more modest beginnings in the 1920s, when the Saudi Arabian Directorate of Education began sending small groups of Saudi male students abroad to study courses in engineering and medicine. The first students were sent to large universities in neighboring Middle Eastern and North African countries. In the late 1950s, the program began to expand, and students were then sent to the UK and Europe, and eventually to universities in the United States. The primary reason why Saudi Arabia began sending its young people abroad for education was because of the limited educational institutions that existed in the kingdom during the early and mid-20th century. In 2005, the scholarship became sponsored by the then King Abdullah, who placed an emphasis on a quarter of the kingdom's resources being allocated to educating Saudi students at both home and abroad. This is how the KASP, or King Abdullah Scholarship Program, was born. Upon its origination, it was the largest funded scholarship program in the world. The current CTHM scholarship is now the third largest in the world after China and India. At the time, the focus was on quantity and not quality of students to be sent to other nations and to return with skills and knowledge useful to the kingdom. This focus would eventually shift to quality during the early 2000s, as the literacy rate in Saudi Arabia reached above 99%. The purpose of the scholarship was to sponsor qualified Saudis for study in the best universities around the world, build up qualified and professional Saudi staff in the work environment, according to Pavin 2013. The goals of the early Abdullah Scholarship Program focused on the development of Saudi Arabia's future workforce by sending students abroad to attend medical, engineering, communications, and business courses with a particular focus on learning English. There was a desperate need to increase the professionalism of the Saudi native workforce. In Saudi Arabia, citizens from every socioeconomic level receive immense government subsidies, with the primary work in business, engineering, medicine, teaching, etc., at the mid and lower levels handled by foreign workers from neighboring Arab states, the Philippines, India, and other East Asian countries. Saudi Arabia wishes to slowly end these subsidies to higher income citizens and ensure that they are managing Saudi industries themselves. While the official motivation behind the establishment of the King Abdullah Scholarship was to increase the professionalism and skill set of the native Saudi workforce, other foreign observers questioned the kingdom's motives. They believed that the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia was attempting to spread their brand of Salafi Islam across the world. As we can see in this quote here from Bukhari and Denman, religious, political, and social pressures have been instrumental in shaping the nature of the scholarship program, and thus it is not unexpected that many academics outside the kingdom believe a major purpose of the program is to promote the word of Islam internationally. The main, or at least the stated aim of the King Abdullah Scholarship Program is essentially economic, to develop an effective and internationally competitive workforce. Now, personally, I question this criticism of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia as far as them sending students outward bound to spread Islam. They also offer scholarships for inbound foreign students to attend Saudi universities, and this is where I believe a greater amount of indoctrination is more likely to occur. While the Wahhabi version of Salafi Islam does encourage proselytizing, both Muslims from other branches of Islam as well as non-Muslims, it's not truly a directive of the Wahhabi Islam to send Saudi students on a mission to go abroad and spread their brand of Islam necessarily. It's not quite the same as what we possibly would see with, say, Christian students who actually do go abroad specifically on missions. In 2015, the King Abdullah Scholarship Program began to be viewed as too broad of a program. It was funding between 165,000 to 200,000 outbound Saudi students to earn foreign degrees. And the question by the government started becoming, but to what end are we doing this? The Kingdom of Saudi Arabia was developing its Vision 2030 goals with a focus on educating young people to take on positions of the future within the country and to grow Saudi Arabia's economy, become a knowledge economy rather than a petroleum-focused one. To meet the need of a highly trained workforce, the King Abdullah Scholarship Program was transformed into the custodian of the Two Holy Mosques Scholarship Program in late 2015, and stricter guidelines were set around the caliber of foreign universities to be attended and the degrees that were permitted in areas such as medicine, engineering, communications, business, etc. Another addition to the program was broadening the funding sources for the program, given that the Saudi oil exports had fallen and greater private funding was necessary. The Saudi government partnered with internal agencies and private corporations to sponsor students to study specific fields such as aviation, water treatment, banking and finance, etc., and then paired this sponsorship with offers of employment for students upon graduation. Previous to this arrangement, many Saudi students would return from abroad with degrees, but no job offers to match their skill sets. In 2016, even further specifications were added to the program, where only 50 of the most prestigious and desired degrees could be attended, and the list of accredited universities was narrowed to the top 200 universities globally. Also, students had to score at least a 4.0 on their IELTS to prove intermediate English skills and had to meet specific GPA requirements. The program goals became focused on educating students to fulfill specific technical jobs, to build the future of the Saudi Arabian workforce, and to create their knowledge society. As of 2021, Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman Al Saud is currently championing the CTHM scholarship and has increased the amounts of sponsorship for the coming years, along with ensuring that the new money empowers more female students to attend study abroad programs. This supports his public diplomacy progressive agenda, which has allowed for women to gain the right to drive, travel without permission from a guardian, the opening of concerts and movie theaters, etc., throughout the Saudi Arabian kingdom. You may ask, where do Saudi Arabian students study overseas? Well, especially for the past 2 decades, the primary countries where they study have been the United States, Canada, the UK, and Australia. In the school year of 2018-2019, over 37,000 Saudi Arabian students were studying in the United States alone. Other nations that have lesser enrollment include the Netherlands, Germany, and Italy, a lot of Asian countries such as South Korea, China, India, Malaysia, Singapore, and Japan, and also local Middle Eastern and North African countries, especially Egypt, Lebanon, and Jordan. So then we get to who are the Saudi Arabian students who earn the scholarship to study overseas. Well, within the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, out of all the university students, 60% are actually female. However, when we look at study abroad students, historically speaking, it's a 3-to-1 ratio of male versus female. Now, this of course makes sense because the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia has had very traditional religious views of women traveling overseas, and for most of the kingdom's history, female students would have had to have been accompanied by a guardian, a male guardian in the family. So this would have made it a lot more restrictive in the past. In today's Saudi Arabia, this is no longer the case. Also, according to the scholarship guidelines, overseas Saudi students must be enrolled in very specific degree programs. This has lately been broadened, by the Crown Prince, who is allowing students to seek out degrees in the arts and humanities. But traditionally speaking, this scholarship program was gearing students towards engineering, the health sciences, communication, business studies and finance, and of course, improving their English. When we look at, as far as the demographics of students and the percentage of which students are doing undergraduate, graduate degrees, etc., 60% of the Saudi students who are studying overseas are earning bachelor's degrees, 24% master's level, and 5% doctoral level. I'm assuming the random 1% that we're missing has just not been accounted for. Now, the results of scholarship program refinement. So with the evolution of Saudi Arabia's scholarship program, originally with the refinement of the CTHM scholarship from the original KSP, there was a drop of Saudi students who were qualified to study abroad in the programs that they could attend. There was even a sharper drop off of Saudi students studying in the US and Canada. And some of this was actually programmatic because they were narrowing the amount of universities and programs the students could pursue. Other parts, especially as of 2017 and afterwards, also were the result of when President Trump came into office and there was a perceived rise among Middle Easterners of Islamophobia throughout the US and Canada. And I say perceived, but actually in Canada, there was a lot more real as well as perceived Islamophobia happening on the ground. This greatly reduced the amount of students who are studying both the US and Canada from Saudi Arabia. So this sharp drop off in Saudi students, especially by 2019, deeply affected the budgets of many American universities who previously really had a reliable income source from Saudi students who were paying full international tuition. Now, much of the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia's public diplomacy outreach to the United States and the West is not only meant to educate their future workforce through this scholarship, but of course to also smooth over critical political and human rights issues that have arisen in Saudi Arabia, especially over the past several decades, and due to the actions of the current Crown Prince. Some key issues include this list here on the slide, focusing on human rights. Obviously, the view of there's definitely an issue between a theocracy, such as in the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, and the democracy of the West. There is sort of a battle between traditional religious values, even within the kingdom, versus the progressive values that are finding their way into the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, as well as those values that are external to Saudi Arabia. You can, of course, look at the closed society versus very open society. Kingdom of Saudi Arabia is essentially currently a military client state of the US. The United States does protect the Saudi Arabian government and keep the king and its current governmental structure in power. And then there are other issues external, such as the war in Yemen, and of course, economic issues such as Saudi's OPEC leadership, which does have great deal of influence on the West. A more current issue that has occurred with the Crown Prince was his ordered assassination of the American journalist Jamal Khashoggi, who was assassinated brutally and essentially cut up and possibly buried in the garden of the Saudi consulate in Istanbul, Turkey. This has raised a great deal of uproar for more than a year now, both in the United States and abroad in most Western governments. And so Saudi Arabia, of course, is utilizing their scholarship program by sending Saudi students out to sort of smooth over some of these more thorny issues between Saudi Arabia and the Western world. Saudi Arabia, while wishing to modernize and incorporate technology and sort of present a cutting edge image as a global progressive power, it's also still trying to hold on to many of its religious Islamic Wahhabi values, where women and men are educated and work in separate spheres. But this really may be difficult to achieve as they're trying to move forward. As this quote here on the slide does show, Saudi Arabia has a strong commitment to its traditional culture and religious beliefs and practices. There is considerable concern at all levels of Saudi society that too much exposure to other cultures and ways of thinking may begin to erode those tightly held traditions. At the same time, almost all Saudis seem acutely aware of the need to engage closely and productively with the international community if the kingdom is to prosper in an increasingly global economy. Resolving the tension between these two imperatives is a major challenge for Saudi Arabia. And I could not agree more. I was very fortunate to find more than enough references concerning this topic. And as you'll see here, a lot of the references, if not all of them, actually have direct links to the source and have so much information you can really go down a rabbit hole on this current topic. But thank you very much for listening and viewing my presentation.